Everybody, and welcome to Gamecock Central Radio. Emerson Phillips with our columnist Scott Davis, taking a look at Scott's column that's up on Gamecock Central right now. Hold Me is the title, and Scott, you needed somebody to hold you after that Gamecock victory on Saturday.
I definitely did, Emerson. Good to be talking to you after a South Carolina win. It seems like it's been 5,000 years since the Gamecocks have won a football game. It really hasn't been long, but it just feels that way. And this game was all over the place. I'm not sure I've seen a stronger football game than the one that we experienced on Saturday. But fortunately for all of us, South Carolina somehow or another comes out with a W on one of those days when it just didn't seem like it was going to be possible for that to happen.
Got to be the most bizarre Gamecock football game that I may have ever seen, Scott. And after the game was over, the Gamecocks had won. You write in your column this week that the season was flickering. It had a pulse. It wasn't burning with life, but it was alive, and that's all you needed to know.
Yeah, and thank goodness for that. I mean, that really is the summary of what this thing felt like. They're alive. This Texas A&M game coming up looks like a monumentally difficult task for them. Defensively, they're not playing very well right now, and we know that. And then offensively, they've struggled to run the football. They have a quarterback who's playing who has not been the starter for his entire time at the University of South Carolina. So they've got some adversity, but somehow or another, they managed to defeat a pretty good Missouri Tigers team on Saturday, and it was just a thrilling finish, and I still don't know how they did it, but they did.
8 game balls in your column this week, Scott. The Parker White, I just don't believe in this guy. Game balls, 8 of them this week, and the first one obviously goes to Parker White.
Yeah, we all know that he had some struggles last year kicking the football, especially beyond 40, 45 yards. Somehow or another, he was able to make every one of his kicks on Saturday, and the reality is the Gamecocks would not have won if he had not been able to do that. He lined up for a kick with, 3 or 4 seconds left in the football game, and normally it was of a length that you would feel pretty good about, but it's just been one of those things where you just never know until it goes through the uprights, and it did, and that was one of the most ecstatic moments I think I've had as a Gamecock fan, watching that thing go through, and I feel good for him because I know he took a lot of criticism last year. He was the guy who helped us win on Saturday.
Gamecock Central Radio, Emerson Phillips with columnist Scott Davis here, taking a look at Scott's column that's up on the site right now. Hold Me is the headline, and this podcast accompanies Scott's column every week. Scott's a South Carolina alumnus. He's a lifelong Gamecock fan. He lives in Atlanta, and he brings us a fan's perspective each week here on Gamecock Central. Scott, Michael Scarnecchia with a game ball, well-deserved.
Absolutely. Comes off the bench, has not played much at all during his career at South Carolina, and just managed the football and got the job done. Did what we've been hoping to see a Gamecock quarterback do for a while, which was just get the football to your playmakers and go from there. And I think that was something that really, really needed to happen for South Carolina to have a chance to win this football game. And he basically did just everything that you needed a quarterback to do to put yourself in position to win. His defense was struggling out there, and every time the Gamecocks needed to answer, they were able to do that. So tremendous performance by him.
Scarnecchia completed 20 of 35 passes for 249 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions in his first career start, filling in for the injured Jake Bentley Saturday against the Missouri Tigers, a 37-35 South Carolina win. And Brian Edwards gets a game ball this week, Scott. I like what you had to say about him.
Well, it was clear, Emerson, that he just wasn't right physically. You could look at it and see he was hobbling out there, just struggling to even walk around the football field, and somehow, had some unfortunate drops early in the football game, and late in the game, though, when they absolutely had to have somebody catch the ball, it was him time and time again. And I just can't say enough about what he did there in the fourth quarter. He's another guy, like we were talking about with Parker White earlier, that when you look in the mirror, you can say that I helped this team win this football game, because he really did do that.
Scott, every week I read your column, I feel like I've learned something new about you. And this week I learned that you're a big fan of the Columbia Cup and that you hate Missouri.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, this is something I've actually talked to some friends of mine about a couple of times. I don't know what it is, but since they joined the SEC, I've just wanted them to really, really know and experience that the Southeastern Conference is a hard place for them to be and for them to be playing football. And so for some reason, it just really makes me feel good to see South Carolina defeat them on the football field. I've very quickly just kind of bought into this rivalry. It seems like it was just kind of made up on the fly, and we sort of decided that this was a rivalry and ran with it. But for me, I've just kind of accepted it. And as I said in the column, the sight of Connor Shaw hoisting that Columbia Cup after a flu-ridden comeback game that I'll never forget just sort of cemented my feelings about wanting to beat Missouri, something the Gamecocks have done for a couple of years in a row now, and I'm happy about that.
More game balls with Scott Davis still to come here on Gamecock Central Radio. Before we get to that, I want to encourage you to get involved with our Gameday podcast here on Gamecock Central Radio. We've got a phone number that you can call and leave a voice message. If you have questions or comments, feedback of any kind, call the Gamecock Central hotline, leave us a voicemail, and we'll play that recording on the Gameday podcast coming up on Saturday. We're taking your Texas A&M questions right now. The number's 803-497-9058, 803-497-9058. The GC hotline open for you 24/7. Hold Me is the headline of Scott Davis's column. And, Scott, we had a lightning delay Saturday and pouring rain throughout much of the second half, and all the Gamecock fans who hung around in those conditions get a game ball also.
They deserve it too, Emerson. I tell you, we talked about how insanely crazy this game seemed to watch from beginning to end, just not even thinking about what actually happened on the football field. You also had driving rain, so it just seemed to come out of nowhere on a day that looked like it was just going to be another one of those incredibly hot, Williams-Brice Stadium kind of days. And then you had a lightning delay as the teams are trying to finish off a game with, 2 or so minutes left in the game when it was really coming down to crunch time. But the fans that remained, I just really take my hat off to them. They were loud. They were proud. They made noise. They made it difficult for Missouri's offense. And so I just have a lot of respect for everybody that was in that stadium at the end, because that was a long, long day to be in Williams-Brice Stadium.
Actor Bradley Cooper gets a game ball this week. Scott, I thought this was interesting. You went and saw A Star Is Born this weekend.
Yeah, he gives a tremendous performance. I encourage everybody to see it. He does not seem like it's even the same guy as the guy that you remember from Wedding Crashers and The Hangover, and that's what it's all about as an actor. Just seems like a completely different person. So, I was unexpectedly blown away by that performance. Thought it was really good.
All right, couple of deflators this week, Scott. 4 of them, in fact, and we'll start with just about everything the Gamecocks did or tried to do on defense against Missouri.
Tough day at the office. Could not stop the run to save their lives. Struggled to stop the pass at times, but they did have some late interceptions that helped them stay afloat. I do have to commend the defense for kind of bowing up in the second half and at least holding Missouri to field goals. Without doing that, they would not have had any chance whatsoever to win this football game. But they've got to figure out solutions in terms of stopping the run. There was a problem against Georgia. It was a huge, huge problem again on Saturday. And if that continues, it's just going to be tough for them to win games this year.
With only 128 yards on 47 carries this weekend, the Gamecock running game gets a deflated ball, as does the South Carolina overall offensive game plan.
Yeah, it was a weird day. You knew you had a backup quarterback in there trying to direct this offense, and so I think they didn't want to put too much into his hands, and I think at times that played well for South Carolina. They just did what they were good at on offense, and it seemed to work. But unfortunately, the running game just did not go anywhere. They couldn't get anything going at all. Just name a running back for South Carolina, and he had a tough day trying to make something happen out there. Again, it's a cliche. We've talked about this a million times, but you hear people say all the time, if you can't stop the run or run the ball, you're going to struggle out there in the SEC. And the Gamecocks could do neither of those things Saturday, which is why it's, again, shocking that they somehow won this game.
So despite the strange circumstances with the weather and problems on offense, the Gamecocks found a way to beat Missouri and take a 5-4 series lead against the Tigers. And as a reward, Scott, the Gamecocks get Texas A&M coming up on Saturday. The Aggies just beat 13th-ranked Kentucky in overtime on Saturday. And once again, you're looking for somebody to hold you.
Yeah, let me say again, I was happy to see Kentucky fall on Saturday. That's a team that I'm ready to begin its descent. I'm tired of the Kentucky Wildcats. But all that being said, Texas A&M, for whatever reason, just has not been a team that South Carolina's matched up well with since they joined the SEC, particularly Texas A&M on offense and South Carolina on defense. Just hasn't been working. So, this is going to be a tough one. I think it's, again, if this season is going to survive and continue to have a pulse, this is one that the Gamecocks need to show some signs of life in, and hopefully they'll do it. But, yeah, it's going to be another nerve-wracking Saturday, Emerson, as it seems to always do.
All right, the Gamecocks have not beaten Texas A&M since A&M joined the SEC, and we got a 3:30 kickoff Saturday at Williams-Brice for the Gamecocks and the Aggies. A&M up to number 22 in the rankings this week, so we're looking forward to that on Saturday. Scott, thanks very much.
Thank you. Talk to you next week.
All right, we'll have Scott again next week here on Gamecock Central Radio. We'll have another column next week after the A&M game, and we'll talk about it here on GCR. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Emerson Phillips, and this is Gamecock Central Radio.